Okay, so you can send a one to see number one, or for argument why their sort of ethic is infinitely aggressive. They say that destroying a part of they say that destruction is a part of life, but they also say that we should not destroy God's creation. They arbitrarily decide that children are the gift of God, but that other beings are arbitrarily not. You can prove their arguments about why, but you can prove those two arguments. Our argument is that it's a destruction of unity no matter what you're destroying. Any conception here is arbitrary. There's created sort of a double-blind delay that they either have the duty to protect gifts of God, gifts of God, for instance, in our disadvantage. We're talking about things like nuclear war, which annihilate animals and do annihilate potential lives, people, and the people that exist in the status quo. These are all profound aspects of unity that need to be preserved. Or little b is that they have an arbitrary and vacuous focus on one type of being, which means that their meaning is not uniform and exists purely in each person. That means that none of the 1AC ethics have meaning, and might as well go, and we might as well go for utilitarianism for the reason I'll talk about later on in the flow. For instance, an example is going to be that miscarriages are a quote-unquote part of life just as much, just like the way to talk about destruction is a part of life. But that doesn't mean that abortion is always going to be good. Just because death is a part of life does not mean that we should allow deaths to occur arbitrarily. That's the same distinction that they're making, and they do not have a response to this argument. The next argument, you can send our Jane evidence and our Boston's Women Health collective evidence, which is our number 2 and our 3. They talk about the way that abortions just get driven underground post-plan, that this actually increases the infections. Not only does it increase infections, but the people who get hurt by this are the women who can't afford to have the abortions, the women of minorities and the poorest of the women. They say that this is going to send a signal, and it's going to cause a regret. But their Goldstein evidence is not good on this point. It's their only evidence on the point. It says that it talks about teaching that these sort of ethics, but it does not mean teach in the sense of people actually following. The law says this, and so people all of a sudden become this sort of moral beings. These ideas, it's not as if these ethics did not exist pre-Roe or did not exist pre-Casey. They do not change the fact that the people think in this way. That's a shallow look at what the card is saying. They said there's no impact to it, but first of all, it talks about the way that discrimination for some is going to prove that their ethic is inherently bankrupt. Second of all, it allows the Goldstein's bad ethic that they talk about the evidence to occur for as long as it's for the rich people and for certain races, and it's just a way of maintaining exclusion, which is going to be bad. And so it's still going to maintain a functional lack of restraint that the Goldstein evidence is indicting. Means that their ethic does not actually come into being. They have no way of creating a state that is unified with God or that is infused with God in any of the sources of sovereignty claims that they talk about. Next thing, Senator 1 number 4, that they don't get rid of the state. They say that she said that they're infused with God and that this is going to be the most important thing, but there's still going to be the property ethic, there's still going to be capitalism, there's still going to be individual rights post-plan. All of these aspects of the state and of the status quo all exist post-plan. Just because they get rid of the Casey decision doesn't mean they have any way of accessing any of these impacts or radically transforming any of these impacts. Just because the Casey decision quote-unquote teaches that doesn't mean that or Roe teaches that doesn't mean that by overturning it people are going to unteach that or going to be changed in any meaningful way. Next you can drop down to the 1 in C number 6, which is our Santilli 2003 evidence, which talks about the way that calculated thought is necessary and that we need to be able to make calculations, that the only way we can actually have ethics is by looking at the things that we can access, that we can empathize with. We need to treat symptoms of suffering. We can't look at other being that we can't look at someone who's suffering. We can't access it and just sort of imagine suffering. So we need identification in order to be able to be ethical beings, in order to right wrongs. It's going to be essential. There's sort of unity ethic. We can't help people. We can't be unified. We can't be Christ-like if we don't have the ability to empathize with those suffering. Next thing to send 1 in C number 7, our Campbell 98 evidence that calculation is inevitable, that we need it in order to avoid the worst sorts of totalitarianism. They admit that Hitler was bad, which obviously, yeah, but their point is that this proves that we must calculate what is good and what is evil, and that there is a conception of what is good and what is evil, and they would probably agree that we should do things like stop genocide and stop mass violence that would be caused by our DISAD impacts, and that these are reasons why the DISAD is going to come first, and why the net benefit is really important in the round. Next, you can extend 1 in C number 8. That's our ISL 2002 evidence that consequentialism is good. These are going to be the impacts to the number 1 that I was talking about before. That the argument is that we're complicit if we don't act to prevent violence. That would be the destruction of unity. If we know that our actions are going to have these consequences, we know we're going to cause war, we're going to cause violence. We have the obligation to prevent it, or else we're allowing it. We're giving it tacit approval. And the point is that we're absolutists about it. We say that we shouldn't look at the consequences. Instead, we should look at the poor fetuses, or look at whatever the unity ethic. Instead of this, it's going to annihilate the non-absolutists and exclude other people. And that sort of exclusion is going to be the exact opposite of the unification ethic, because they're necessarily saying, well, your views are not good, we have the right view, and you are not allowed to even comment on this, and then your sort of ethics cannot even be considered, just because, even though it might result in mass violence and death. Next, you can send the 1 in C number 9, which is another argument about deontology bad, which is another argument about why their ethic. I know they say that deontology is bad, and so it's not relevant. But the argument is that they say we should not weigh the consequences of our actions. And this argument is purely about weighing why weighing our consequences is the most important. Next, you can send 1 and see number 11 that they're necessarily killing by the killing a fetus or killing anything else. You're killing a part of the whole. This creates sort of a double bind, whereas either killing a part of a whole maintains the unity and is not a bad thing, which means there's no reason to vote affirmative. They're not endorsing any sort of ethic, and we should actually probably just vote to avoid killing the bigger part of the whole, or that killing a part of a whole is necessarily bad, and we should probably avoid it by avoiding the disad impacts. That means that the point is that also that the point where there's still unity when you kill part of the whole means that the value of life of the fetus, the value of that they're valuing the life of the fetus. It means it's the same sort of individualism and the same sort of ethic that their 1AC is indicting, which means that they're actually double turning themselves, I guess. What do we have?